Today I'm going to be explaining why the MicroStrategy supply shock could send Bitcoin to $1 million. That's right, I said MicroStrategy. What am I talking about? Well, what if I told you the entire world was buying shares of MicroStrategy right now? We're going to be covering the Middle Eastern FOMO that I think we're seeing accelerate around the world, but we even have 14 pension funds putting MicroStrategy into their retirement accounts for their shareholders. That's an interesting tidbit. But guess what's even more interesting? The man who has hated Bitcoin for over years and years, calling it a fraud, a decentralized Ponzi scheme, and explicitly saying he never wants to talk about Bitcoin again. Of course, we're talking about the CEO of a $4 trillion bank in America, Mr. Jamie Dimon himself. Look what I've uncovered here. He has been quietly going on an absolute MicroStrategy buying spree bonanza. Have a look at the increase of MicroStrategy shares held by the $4 trillion bank, JP Morgan. Have we maybe, just maybe, uncovered the reason why Jamie Dimon doesn't want to talk about Bitcoin anymore?
This is the last time I've ever talked about this in CNBC, okay? So help me God. Blockchain is real. It's a technology. We use it. It's going to move money. It's going to move data. It's efficient. We've been talking about that for 12 years, too, and it's very small, okay? So I think we've wasted too many words in that. Cryptocurrencies, there are two types. There's a cryptocurrency which might actually do something. Think of a cryptocurrency as an embedded smart contract in it, and that we can use it to buy and sell real estate and move data. That may have value.
The idea of tokenizing things.
Tokenizing things that you do something with. And then there's one which does nothing. I call it the pet rock, the Bitcoin or something like that. And so on the Bitcoin, there's, first of all, and I'm not trying to make a joke here. There are use cases, AML, fraud, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance, sex trafficking. Those are real use cases.
All right, so everybody's favorite, Jamie Dimon. Again, he doesn't really have positive or constructive things to say about Bitcoin. But why is that? Is he trying to make everybody believe that he's not bullish on Bitcoin? But when we have a look at his private portfolio, we're going to see some pretty interesting things about what this $4 trillion bank is actually buying. So, of course, for those who doubted it, JP Morgan is an enormous bank. They have $4 trillion worth of assets. But what I find absolutely fascinating is their public negative stance on Bitcoin. But their private portfolios that get leaked at the end of every quarter, they always show an increasing amount of MicroStrategy. A little bit strange. 99% of people who buy MicroStrategy are buying it to get Bitcoin exposure. I don't think they're buying MicroStrategy to get exposure to their business intelligence services. I don't know. That's just me. I think 99% of people buying MicroStrategy today are buying it for the Bitcoin upside. Now let's have a look at what I find really fascinating. Read this article headline with me. JP Morgan Chase and co-ownership in MicroStrategy? Yep, I saw this headline today and it was an absolute head scratcher. This came out May 16th. So this is today, okay? We can see here that as of the 12th, JP Morgan filed a 13F HR form with the SEC, and they actually quietly revealed that they've increased their share of MicroStrategy by about $100 million over the last quarter. That's right, read this highlighter with me. JP Morgan's current position in MicroStrategy is a 446,217,000 big one position. Okay, they are surprisingly increasing their Bitcoin holdings and their Bitcoin positions rapidly, really rapidly. Have a look at their last big massive buying spree. This is pretty interesting stuff here. What's actually going on here with JP Morgan? I find it fascinating they're buying a lot of MicroStrategy here in 2017 and 2018. Just an interesting tidbit I want you guys to be aware of. I do find that really, really interesting. But it's not nearly as interesting as the pension funds going all in on Bitcoin as well. We always talk about how Bitcoin fundamentally solves the biggest problem in the world. What is that? It's the retirement crisis. That's right. There is 8 billion people around the world today, and everybody is struggling to retire because the cost of living continues to rise and rise and rise every single year. And guess what? Bitcoin fixes this. We always show you guys that 0.1 Bitcoin could be enough to save you from the retirement crisis absolutely plaguing the world today. And guess what? Now we have some of the largest retirement firms in America putting Bitcoin into their accounts for you, almost as if, maybe just maybe, America is catching on. Let's have a look at some of the biggest holders here. We have California's state teachers retirement system squatting on 336,000 shares of MicroStrategy. That is $134 million. We have, also in California, their public employees retirement system. They have 142 million big ones worth of Bitcoin in their retirement fund. And again, you guys can see some pretty big names on this list. We can also see 88 million invested by Florida's State Board of Administration. And in total, these 14 retirement and pension funds have about $632 million worth of Bitcoin. So they single-handedly hold more Bitcoin than Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, which again is super interesting because it looks as if all of these big institutions right now are absolutely loading up on, guess what? Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now let's have a look at this. Why is this? Well, I find this fascinating. 43% of MicroStrategy is owned by who? Institutions. Let's break down this little table because I found it pretty interesting. There's, you can see this. This has recent insider transactions. You can also see insider trading volume. You guys know I love having a look for a little bit of inside scoops, so to say. And we can see here, oh my Lord, somebody buy the Australian kid with the shitty haircut and ad blocker. My Lord, I apologize. Wow, all right, I'm not even going to deal with those ads over there. But what I will do is I'm going to highlight the most important piece of information right here for you guys. 43% of MicroStrategy is owned by institutions. A total of 25 investors have a majority stake in the company with 40% ownership. So it's the big boys quietly loading up on MicroStrategy. And this is, I think, something to pay attention to. We can see here the general public holds 50% of MicroStrategy's total shares. They're sitting on 136 million. That's a tough number to read. 136 million shares of MicroStrategy. And the institutions, they have 116 million shares of MicroStrategy. So it is largely dominated by the big boys. Now, this isn't the only realm of domination I think we're seeing by the, yours truly, the big boys. I think we're seeing some really interesting things I want to bring your attention toward here in a moment, because it's not just MicroStrategy getting a lot of attention from the whales, the big institutions, those capital allocators who matter most. I'm seeing some really interesting trends develop in the market right now, because right now, at the time of the recording, whales are buying Bitcoin more aggressively than any time before. And I think we are seeing the mother of all Bitcoin supply shocks emerge. We can see here, whales just aggressively increased their Bitcoin position by hundreds of thousands. And who sold? Who was the paper-handed Bitcoin holder who sold their Bitcoin? Let's have a look at this chart right here. We can see this new report shows that individuals sold 247,000 Bitcoin, and businesses and funds and ETFs were the major accumulators. So what exactly is going on in the Bitcoin space right now? why do I think this change and this trend change is very important? We've seen individuals and retail sell their Bitcoin to the institutions when the Bitcoin price is dipping. Again, I think this is really interesting. But something that I think is even more interesting is this heat map right here. So we can see a lot of whale accumulation is happening again. New Bitcoin whales. These are whales holding between 1,000 and 10,000 Bitcoin. Their accumulation score just hit a hot 0.9. We actually haven't seen these levels of accumulation since November 2024. Now that's a long time ago. 5 months in Bitcoin, that's like light years, literally light years. And the last time we saw this, let's check in on where the Bitcoin price was during this recent, stage of aggressive Bitcoin accumulation. Oh, well, don't you think that's interesting? October and November. What are those really big green months? Oh, those are the months when Bitcoin rallied from 61K to 105K. Wouldn't you find that interesting? And now we're seeing two pretty big green monthly candles, and the whales are accumulating Bitcoin again. Now, I do think this is really interesting. But there's a little bit more to this story. There is so much more to this story because I got a chart I want to show you guys because these whales are really not slowing down. And what I find concerning is how much Bitcoin could be left for them. Because we can see right here, 500,000 Bitcoin have just left the exchanges in the past 5 months. How many Bitcoin is mined every month? It's only about 13 to 14,000 Bitcoin. And have a look at this trend of supply suffocation. So let's do the maths quickly. We have about 15,000 Bitcoin mined every month, and 100,000 Bitcoin is getting ripped off the exchanges. This is why I think we're setting up for the mother of all supply shocks. I just think charts like this really give me pause. They really make me reevaluate my bullish Bitcoin stance because it's beginning to, I'm not going to lie, it's making me a little bit worried. This is another chart that shows the trend change that we're seeing, where we're watching all of this huge demand from someone. Again, we don't know who it is. All we do know is that institutions are buying Bitcoin hand over fist. And again, the speculation is, we've been speculating since 2023 and 2024 when we saw that some of the largest asset managers around the world, like BlackRock, were quietly accumulating shares of MicroStrategy, that maybe they were trying to position themselves positively into Bitcoin. Now, that again, that was just speculation at the time. But guess what we're seeing now? We are seeing institutions, funds, ETFs, and businesses go all in on Bitcoin right now at the time of recording. And what I find fascinating is the trend change. It's just accelerating. Whales are continuously right now buying incredible amounts of Bitcoin. Again, their holdings, they've increased a lot recently, like a lot, mind you. This isn't like, little small 5% changes, 10% changes. These whales are buying a ton of Bitcoin, an absolute ton of Bitcoin. So what comes next? I mean, some people think the bull run is over. I'm not so certain. I think if we jump back on over to my favorite chart of all time, and that is the chart that only goes up and to the right, I think we're only just getting started in this Bitcoin bull run. I don't think we're anywhere close to a peak, despite some people claiming we are. Because obviously, as you just saw, we have some pretty big conferences happening around the world, and we have some pretty big things happening at those conferences. Now, I do find that interesting. But again, let's jump back on over here to our trusty chart, our trusty Bitcoin chart, and let's have a look at where we are right now. We're back above 103,000. Now, what I find really interesting about this chart is not just the chart, but I'm more interested in retail interest in Bitcoin. Because right now, retail interest in Bitcoin is literally non-existent. If I jump on over here to one of my favorite websites, Google Trends. Now, again, I want to be very careful with, I don't want to pump Google up too much here. But I will say, they give me a great chart here when I want to look at Google Trends, because right now, interest in Bitcoin is at 21. That's bear market levels. That is at levels of people just not caring about Bitcoin one iota. Does this really look like a bull run to you guys? I don't think it does. And even if we really try to, let's say, cover our behinds here, let's try a different search term. Let's try buy Bitcoin. Again, not a whole lot going on here. This is crickets, absolute crickets. You can see here's the massive 2017 spike. Here's 2021 bull run. Again, this is the bull run that I think was a fake bull run. It was a neutered bull run. I don't think it had the full force, so to say. And you can see now this is supposedly Bitcoin at an all-time high. Right now it is a 7 on the Google search trends interest for Bitcoin. The same level it was in the FTX collapse in Q3 2022. And again, the same kind of levels of interest that we saw between 2018 and 2019 when Bitcoin was $3,000 a coin. Again, I do think we're seeing some serious asymmetry right now. And it just really looks to me as if retail money is simply not paying attention to what is happening. As some of the largest asset managers around the world are quietly going all in on Bitcoin. Now, of course, we know that BlackRock, they're going all in on Bitcoin. But what if I told you that an executive at a $5 trillion asset manager was also going all in on Bitcoin? Let's play the tape from a really interesting speech that I just saw play at the MicroStrategy conference last week that shows that the big money is still flooding in.
And then you compare this to Bitcoin. Average annual return last 5 years, 65%. So the question to companies out there is, number one, what's your return on invested capital? Have you calculated it? How does that compare to your cost of capital? Are you generating shareholder value? Do you have extra cash? And if so, what are you doing with that extra cash? And then the ultimate question is, what's your current opportunity set? What are the investment ideas and opportunities that are in front of you? And do you think or do you believe the return on those ideas or opportunities will exceed the opportunity cost of Bitcoin? Thank you.
So this was, again, just recently, this recently happened at the MicroStrategy World Conference. And what I think is interesting is this is pretty much a warning directly sent to the 330 million public companies around the world. He directly said, if you cannot outpace the appreciation of Bitcoin, what are you doing? So what is the appreciation rate of Bitcoin? Well, I'm going to show you one of my favorite little visualizations. This is put together by Wicked, and this is showing us Bitcoin's CAGR over time. So a CAGR is a compounded annual growth rate. Okay, and you can see the Bitcoin price is in white, and you can see in 2015, Bitcoin's CAGR was over 200%, which is pretty crazy to think about. And even after 2016, so between 2009 and 2016, you can see Bitcoin's CAGR, which is in kind of that purplish color, it's still above 100% per year. So everybody's scared of Bitcoin's volatility. Yes, it's crashed by 70 to 80% on multiple occasions throughout its life. But when you zoom out and you include the years where Bitcoin increases by 200, 300, 400, 500%, you all of a sudden get some pretty bullish numbers for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's CAGR is much higher than most people think. Even right here, this is 2022. And if you just pause that visualization so you guys can kind of get a look at what we're cooking with here, there in the red, have a look at that. That's Bitcoin's 12-year CAGR. That is 278%. That means Bitcoin's more than tripling every year for 12 years. That's nuts. right? Now let's get a little bit more conservative. Bitcoin's 10-year CAGR, 150%. Okay, it's pretty interesting. Bitcoin's 8-year CAGR, 77%. 6-year CAGR, 118%. So again, this is why we always say that, hey, Bitcoin's appreciation rate is the new cost of capital. Unless you're outpacing Bitcoin's growth, what are you doing? Like, if you don't have half your portfolio in Bitcoin right now, what are you doing? Now, again, I think that that little visualization is brilliant. So kudos to Wicked for creating that one for me. Or creating that for us, because we can see it doesn't matter what time frame you look at, you'd be unwise to not hold any Bitcoin. I'm going to be really cautious of what I say here at 5:38 on a Friday night when I haven't eaten breakfast, because who knows, something silly might slip out. But the advice that's going to slip out that I don't think is silly is that the world's largest asset managers are openly saying the quiet parts out loud. You probably need more Bitcoin exposure. It's as simple as that. Because when we take a look at Bitcoin's CAGR, it's undeniable. There is no second best investment. It's Bitcoin, and then there is the rest. And this is why I think we're beginning to see some of the largest pension funds jump into Bitcoin. Again, I was absolutely shocked when I did see 14 pension funds in America literally controlling trillions of dollars going all in on Bitcoin. So again, this is Fidelity, $4.9 trillion of assets under management. When Fidelity speaks, the entire world listens. And of course, who is one of those people that is listening right now to Fidelity? Of course, it's one of the newest Bitcoin treasury companies that I think could slowly but surely become competition for MicroStrategy. Who are we talking about? We're talking about the new kid on the block. We're talking about the brand new partnership between Tether, SoftBank Group, and Jack Mallers, who've just launched 21. This is the newest Bitcoin treasury company that maybe, just maybe, is finally listening to what Fidelity and some of the largest asset managers in the world are saying. Now, again, the little tidbit that I just want you guys to think about here for a moment is Howard Lutnick is the man in charge of America's sovereign wealth fund. Interesting, don't you think? That now he's partnered up with Tether and Jack Mallers to create the newest Bitcoin treasury company. I don't know. I think that all I will say is I think that's absolutely fascinating. I think it's very, very interesting. And I think we're going to see more. I think we're going to see more and more companies doing this. And again, to D9's comment in the chat, if we do see more and more companies continue to rip Bitcoin off the exchanges, I'm never going to rule out Bitcoin from crashing, but I think you can make a pretty coherent argument for Bitcoin potentially seeing something that's a little bit different this time. Again, I still think we're going to see 50% crashes, 60% crashes in Bitcoin. I still think we could see 70% crashes in the Bitcoin price. But for me, I'm less confident that we're going to continue to see these big, long 18-month bear markets. I'm not so sure that we are going to see that. I think these bear markets are probably going to be a lot shorter. And I think that's purely because we have public companies setting the floor right now. Again, if these guys just bought over the past 5 months, 500,000 Bitcoin, that's 100,000 Bitcoin per month. And there's only 15,000 Bitcoin-ish mined every month. I think we're beginning to get to a stage where things are getting a little bit dangerous. Things are getting a little bit more interesting when it comes to Bitcoin, considering what we're seeing right now. I think we're seeing some really crazy things. I think we're seeing evidence that maybe this chart will continue to plummet like an absolute rock. Again, who's going to be the next massive Bitcoin treasury company? Will there be another MicroStrategy stood up or a 21 competitor? I don't know, to be entirely honest with you guys. But what I am confident about is the fact that more and more of the big boys are going to have to get interested in Bitcoin. I think America kind of started what I think will slowly become a race. I think things are going to get really interesting here in the not too distant future. And I don't think it's long before most countries and sovereign wealth funds have a Bitcoin strategy, because we're slowly but surely seeing some really interesting signs come out here. And I think most people are not bullish enough on Bitcoin, because literally in the past 48 hours, we saw Saudi Arabia's central bank come out and announce that they were printing fiat money to buy 25,000 shares of MicroStrategy. And then in the same SEC disclosures that all came out today, we saw that Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth fund just quietly invested $400 million into Bitcoin through BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. Again, this is one of the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world with $500 billion worth of assets. So are we beginning to see the Middle Eastern giants come to the recognition that Bitcoin could be the next global reserve currency? Don't get me wrong, I get it. That's a pretty bold statement. But again, for 50 years, these guys would only buy US Treasury bonds and they would only sell their oil in US dollars. What's changed? Why are we starting to see headlines like this that show that, hey, hang on a minute, maybe it's not just Jamie Dimon doing a Bitcoin backflip like he recently has. Again, Bitcoin is a fraud. Oh, what price did we buy that MicroStrategy? We're now seeing Saudi Arabia's central bank taking indirect Bitcoin exposure through MicroStrategy. Now, I do think this is absolutely fascinating. And I just don't think this is going to be the last Middle Eastern announcement when it comes to Bitcoin. We can see here, the Saudi central bank just revealed it owns MicroStrategy. Ooh, what comes next? What is going to happen? Well, we can also see on the same day, a 13F was filed. The Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund disclosed owning 8 million shares of IBIT. Let's put that into perspective. I get it. Big numbers. That is $400 million. Pretty big. That is pretty big. That is for sure. And again, they're only increasing their exposure every quarter. They're not selling. Many of the Bitcoin bears will have you think that, hang on a minute, it's all over. The bull run is over. Well, it's not. This here is the official filing from the Saudi central bank. Have a look at whose name is highlighted there. It's pretty interesting. That is very interesting. I would nearly call that a backflip. That is a hell of a backflip, don't you think? I think that's a very interesting backflip. I reckon Rob in the chat agrees with me there. All right. Who else agrees with me in the chat? Well, I'm beginning to think that these oil producers, who are some of the largest oil producers in the world, slowly adopting Bitcoin, could be some serious signal here. So again, it's not just the UAE adopting Bitcoin today. It's also Oman. Who forgot about that $80 billion giant? It's also, I apologize in advance if I butchered that name, Kyrgyzstan also adopted Bitcoin way out there in the Middle East. And it looks as if Saudi Arabia plans on increasing their investment into Bitcoin mining nearly year after year after year. Because this is their projections of what they're going to be investing into the Bitcoin mining market between 2018 and 2030. Looks like it's an extra $50 to $60 to $70 million every single year. Now, considering this is coming from literally some of the largest pools of money in the entire world, we really need to start paying attention, because we know America is going to be launching a sovereign wealth fund in the not too distant future. It's coming. The orange man's already said it. And guess who's it? Again, we've said Howard Lutnick is in charge of that. Howard Lutnick, 40% of his personal portfolio is in MicroStrategy. He's as bullish as anyone on the news. And then we've got the big orange man, the man who has said I want every single Bitcoin to be mined, minted, and made in America. These guys are going to stand up a sovereign wealth fund, and I reckon you would be crazy to think that they're not going to want to buy more Bitcoin than their competitors. And you'd also be crazy. Again, you're not crazy. I'm the crazy one here. But again, I strongly believe America's, look, I mean, they're the greatest country in the world. Let's be frank here. Let's be honest here. They are the global reserve currency holder. They are the current global dominant empire around the world. And I think there's a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to want to have the largest sovereign wealth fund. How big is that going to be? Let's have a look. These are the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world. The Norwegian sovereign wealth funds, 1.3 trillion. China, they have a $1.351 trillion sovereign wealth fund. And then you can see 4 sovereign wealth funds from the Middle East coming in at 993 billion, 801 billion big ones, $700 billion. That's how big the public investment fund in Saudi Arabia is. And then we've got the Qatar Investment Authority coming in at $450 billion. Now, if we really think America is not going to want to buy or accumulate a sovereign wealth fund bigger than some of these Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds, I've got something to sell you. And I think Pascal makes a great point in the chat here as well. Canada is slow to adopt. Could not agree more. Linda is in the Rumble chat. Hello, Linda from the Rumble chat. I'm even in the Rumble chat apparently. Now, Linda's got a question here. Now, again, there's not many of you guys on Rumble, so I'm going to answer Linda's chat from Rumble first. Buying ETFs and MSTR isn't like buying spot BTC. Are they buying Bitcoin? So MicroStrategy is squatting on 550,000 Bitcoin. They are essentially a Bitcoin proxy. But no, Linda, buying ETFs and MSTR is not like buying spot Bitcoin, if I'm understanding that question correctly. When you have spot Bitcoin, you actually have the Bitcoin in your own self-custody. You actually hold the thing yourself. Very different to an ETFs. ETFs, you don't hold the real thing, sadly. Okay, when you hold an ETF, you may as well not hold any Bitcoin, to be honest. You've only really got paper promises that an ETF or a MicroStrategy will return your funds in the future. This is why I always encourage you guys to go and buy the real thing, get a hardware wallet, and then also make sure you take that Bitcoin off the exchange. Very, very important caveat there. And this is, again, I think some of these sovereign wealth funds, I reckon they're probably doing that. I reckon they're probably doing exactly that. I reckon they're taking their Bitcoin off the exchanges. And I don't think they're trusting Coinbase. I would be surprised if they're trusting Coinbase. I'd be very, very surprised if they're trusting Coinbase. Again, pretty much the message I always like to drill into your heads here on the channel is don't trust anyone. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Again, I think the best place to buy your Bitcoin is at the Bitcoin well, okay? They not only cater to retail. Again, if you buy Bitcoin on the Bitcoin well, they're going to give you tokens to play the Bitcoin wishing well. You throw your tokens into the wishing well, you go into the draw to win 1 million Satoshis. That is 1% of a Bitcoin. Again, you can sign up with the Bitcoin well in the description down below in today's video. And once you've bought your Bitcoin on the Bitcoin well, I always encourage you guys, put it in a hardware wallet. Again, doesn't matter what hardware wallet you get. They're all great. I always get asked for recommendations from hardware wallets. I've got tons of them. I've got cold cards, I've got Bitboxes, I've got Jades, I've got passports, I've got them all. I really do have them all. Just go get your hands on anything. I don't have a hardware wallet to sell you. I think they're all great. But what I will say is when it comes to backing up your hardware wallet, there's some better solutions than others. That's of course because titanium is superior to stainless steel. This is why I always encourage you guys to check out Stampseed. They sell titanium plates that do survive house fires, that do survive floods, hurricanes, and absolutely everything life throws at it. Okay, it's very important that we get our Bitcoin 12 or 24 words stamped into titanium. Okay, very, very important. Why is that? Well, that is because sometimes stainless steel will not do the job. Okay, we need to have our Bitcoin backed up on titanium. Again, you guys can get 15% off anything you want to buy from Stampseed with that promo code Luke15. So take advantage of that. Literally, as I say it, my boy All Night Hider chucks a link in the chat for you guys. Should also be in the description of today's show. Okay, now, Benny Hanna. My man Ben says, I engraved my seeds in a gold bar, but it melted in a house fire. Melted in a house fire. What a shame. Speaking of gold, I do love, don't get me wrong, I think gold is great. I think there are lots of people who watch the channel who invest in gold. A lot of people ask me about gold. I think gold's a great second best option behind Bitcoin. Again, I have people who say, I don't want to put 100% of my net worth in gold. That's cool. That's great. Good on you. But again, what I will say is I'd be cautious having 100% of your net worth in gold because, as we can see, I found this today. Scientists just created fake gold using lead. Let's not forget what happened when scientists were able to artificially create diamonds. Naturally, if you can artificially create something, you can increase the supply of it. What happens when you increase the supply of something? Value goes down the toilet, okay? It's not a good thing. Okay, this is why we're all so bullish on Bitcoin, because there is nothing more scarce than Bitcoin in the world, unless and except for your time. Again, we get, 80 years if we're lucky. I drink too much coffee, so I probably won't get that many years. But what I will say is that with your limited time, 100%, go to some conferences. Rob makes a great point in the chat. I was thinking of going to BTC Prague. You'll see me there. You'll be able to find me at BTC Prague. I'm very excited for that one. And they actually let me in the country over there in the Czech Republic. Who knows for how much longer? Depending upon how much anti-government propaganda I spread on this YouTube channel for you guys, and depending upon how many silly things I say on a live stream in front of the 660, one of you guys on the live stream. Nearly got an unlucky number. Again, if you are enjoying the live stream, we are happy to have you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you do like these crazy rants from an Australian, I'm going to be very careful what I say. With this crazy Australian, again, we'd appreciate you guys destroying the like button down below. We're told that helps with the YouTube algorithm. So again, thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in. If you do want to learn a little bit more about the exact percentage I think you need to retire, I actually filmed a video and published that puppy yesterday, where I had a look at what I think is the best portfolio allocation to Bitcoin for someone in their 20s, 30s, and 50s. And again, if you're 70 or 40, you can do the extrapolation, okay? I will make you a video just for your age group in the not too distant future. But after this live stream's finished, I'm going to put a link to that video somewhere around there, and you will be surprised because I don't actually think having 100% of your money or time allocated to Bitcoin is the best thing to do with your money or your time in any scenario. Doesn't matter what age you are. I know, controversial take. Go and check out the video before you blow me up in the comments down below. Again, the link to that video will be somewhere around there. And all that said, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in.